And postcard with a story idea that you'd like to see here on the show. Send it to Caribbean 500, Post Office Box 240417, Charlotte, North Carolina 28224. And Ned will make a drawing on our show that airs the weekend of November 1st, and that's really an exciting trip.
It sounds like it will be. Our NASCAR notebook this week concerns the pace car. Sometimes when the drivers see the pace car come out after they've been running 150, 200 miles an hour, it's quite a jolt for them to slow down to, say, 60 or 70 miles an hour. But they know there's a reason for it to be out there. There's something wrong. Mark Allen has the story.
When the caution comes out, NASCAR has to have some way to slow down the drivers. Otherwise, they might be tempted to keep running too fast to allow the safety crews to do their job. That's the responsibility of the pace car, or the caution car, as some call it. Partly for safety and partly for scoring, the pace car is never dispatched when the yellow is first waved.
The caution car is released when the leader, after receiving the yellow flag, arrives at turn 4, or the front straightaway. Then the caution car is sent out. He is slowed because if the leader and several others behind him, however many, goes into the pits, then we pick up the next car that stays on the racetrack, whether he's in the lead lap or whether he's 10 laps down. It doesn't matter. We pick up the car that remains on the racetrack after the leaders go into the pit.
The speed of the pace car varies with the size of the track. At a place like Bristol, the speed is 30 miles per hour. Talladega, it's 75. The caution lap pace always benefits cars pitting unless more service than the usual fueling and tire change is required.
We do not want any car lapped under a normal pit stop condition, which on a short track is 2 tires and 2 cans of fuel. On a long track is 4 tires and 2 cans of fuel.
No one is permitted to pass the pace car, but as the field approaches the pit road entrance, cars can sprint ahead as long as they don't go above the track apron entering the pits. On the largest superspeedways like Talladega and Daytona, the pace car lap takes well over a minute. This permitted Bobby Allison's crew to slap in a new windshield and not get lapped in the Winston 500. Allison won the race.
Ned, you've said several times you really enjoyed racing at this track. You got to bring your family. It's a real nice atmosphere. What about the track itself? What was unique about it?
I'll tell you, it presents a real challenge. The long straightaways, the short, flat turns really presents a challenge on driving and setting the car up.
And things haven't changed that much in the racing action. Randy Bowen has all the highlights of the Nationwise 150.
Tommy Houston scored a big win at Martinsville by leading the Nationwise 150 start to finish. Meanwhile, Jack Ingram suffered a big loss of 172 points when NASCAR denied him a start in the event. Houston almost didn't start the race either. A tow truck had to push him off the line. But once under power, Houston employed a simple strategy. Snatch the low groove, never yield an inch, and lead every lap of the race. The day's first caution fell for Davey Allison, who marred the backstretch wall. Allison turned only 4 laps in his debut at Martinsville. Later, L.D. Ottinger rearranged the running order for Larry Pearson, but Pearson stormed back to duel again with Ottinger. Charlie Luck encountered bad luck when a blown engine sent him spinning for the day's third caution. Then, Dale Jarrett took advantage of the situation to pit for fresh tires. He didn't need the spare gas tank, and it cost him time. While Houston ran away from the field, a war broke out between Morgan Shepherd, Brett Bodine, L.D. Ottinger, and Larry Pearson, all gunning for second. In the wake of Ingram's absence, Pearson and Bodine ran flat out for a strong finish and a big gain in points. The reckless abandon came to a head on lap 135 with Shepherd holding off the mad charge for second. In the day's last accident, the runner-up spot for Shepherd quickly changed to a disappointing 16th place finish. With 12 laps to go, everyone had a final shot at Houston, but he saw to it that the racing was for second. Pearson ended the runner-up. Ottinger finished third, Bodine fourth. Bodine's now 86 points off Ingram. Pearson's just 9 behind Bodine. The race for the Grand National Championship has definitely heated up.
Ned, one aspect of the Caribbean 500 that I've neglected to mention is that we're also giving away a second and a third prize, and they're pretty nice as well. We're giving away 2 round-trip tickets to anywhere that Piedmont flies.
So get those entries in. NASCAR continues to evaluate the left-right series. We'll see that coming somewhere down the road. We'll have the story and the news right after this. Stay with us.
Any of the responsive high-powered cars are a lot of fun to drive, and the L-R car, the first look at it, it certainly leaned in that direction. It wasn't all the way worked out. We still had some adjustments that needed to be made when the test ended the other day.
On a 76, that was definitely a goodie.
In July of 1985, NASCAR announced that they would have an L-R left-right series starting in 1987. They want to get into some market areas around the country that they've not been in before, so perhaps they could run on some of the street courses or some of the other road courses that they have not run on in the past. They developed one car, that one didn't suit, so they've developed another car. So Steve, it's a matter really of coming up with the right rules or the right car that'll fit that kind of a situation.
That's right, Ned. There's been a lot of talk about the best way to make this car feasible and economically possible for all the teams involved. And Mark Allen has this latest look at NASCAR's left-right series prototype car.
The cover came off the first L-R prototype, a Pontiac 2000 Sunbird, this past January. The Pioneer chassis was built by Banjo Matthews. Richard Childress's shop turned it into a race car. But it didn't take many laps around the Charlotte Motor Speedway road course to reveal the search for the ideal L-R car was going to be a lengthy one.
It's a little front heavy. The weight's not quite as good as it needs to be on the car. There's a lot of improvement to be made, and I think once they get the car on the rule book, so to speak, we'll have a good race car.
A little more than 7 months later, the second prototype was put through its paces under the watchful eyes of NASCAR executives and chassis builder Mike Laughlin, who incorporated what was learned from the first test car into this Buick Regal Somerset. The changes were substantial. The first prototype weighed 3,000 pounds, the second a more responsive 2,600. The first car's weight ratio was so biased toward the front, it was hard to turn and tough on brakes. The second had the weight nearly evenly distributed. The wheelbase was also lengthened, adding stability. The September 10th test runs, with Bobby Allison repeating his January test roll, indicated development was on the right track.
We were able to look at some things and make some changes, and the second car, I think, was very impressive. It was light and it was fast, and you know, it was drivable, so I think that you know, it was a big step toward the development of that kind of a car if it does become a reality.
Though pleased with the results from the second test, NASCAR still feels more fine-tuning is needed.
I don't know that there'll be another prototype per se the way we built these first two. If this second one tests out in this other test that we'd like to do in about 3 or 4 weeks, we can go ahead and write the rules from that, and then as the cars are built by the various builders, they'll make all the initial improvements that need to be made on it. Each car, as we go down the road, is built better than the last one.
Part of the reason for being behind schedule is the desire to keep costs down.
We built this car using as many of the existing components as we could, such as engine, transmission, rear end, wheels, tires, spindles, springs, you know, everything except sheet metal. And we did that purposely so we'd run some interchangeability there, and which keeps the cost down.
The wild card in much of the L-R project is the status of the Riverside Road Course. Until recently, November's race was feared to be the last there before the circuit's only track west of the Mississippi was to succumb to a developer's plow. Riverside's reprieve eases the pressure NASCAR was feeling to have the L-Rs ready to run next year on one of the existing West Coast road courses. Though L-R development hasn't proceeded as quickly as many had hoped, keep in mind that the chassis and specifications on these 3,700-pound Winston Cup cars have been around since 1967, in some cases without any modification. The L-R series is a brand new NASCAR concept with no foundation of experience on which to build. Every step forward has been the result of trial and error. Then where does the L-R program stand this last week of September? Well, we definitely won't see the L-Rs racing next season. In fact, it is possible a third prototype may be built before rules are written and teams get down to the business of turning the concept into a competitive reality. Because of the number of wrinkles yet to be ironed out, no one is saying for sure when the L-Rs will bow before NASCAR fans.
Steve, I think all of the competitors in the sport want to see them keep the weight down as much as they possibly can, because that will be a key factor. In fact, right now, Goodyear is applying pressure on NASCAR to reduce the weight of the current Winston Cup cars by some 200 pounds to help the tire situation.
Well, we heard Dale Earnhardt after the Dover race say these cars are just flat out too heavy to run on these tires. And whatever NASCAR does, Bill France Jr. told you earlier this year that they're going to make the right decision for everyone. They're not going to rush into anything.
Well, I think it's smart for them to evaluate it that way. Now for some news. The next race on the Winston Cup circuit is the Holly Farms 400 at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, and the president of that track, Enoch Staley, was injured last week in a tractor accident. It's not known at this time if he'll be out of the hospital in time to attend that race. Five-time NASCAR Busch Grand National champion Jack Ingram has been fined $5,000 and suspended for 15 days from NASCAR competition for an incident at the new Asheville Speedway at Asheville, North Carolina on September 14th. Ingram rammed into Ronnie Presley after the two had tangled while battling for position in a 200-lap late model stock race. Presley was hospitalized for 3 days. Ingram was also charged with assault on a police officer. He has since apologized to Presley. The NASCAR suspension set him down for 2 races, which will cost him the point lead in the Busch Grand National standing. He will be able to return to action in the All-Pro Auto Parts 300 at Charlotte, North Carolina on October 4th. NASCAR also took his winner's circle spot and put him on probation for the remainder of the year. One good thing came out of the situation for Ingram this week. The U.S. Tobacco Company announced that Skoal would sponsor him again in 1987. Sterling Marlin was named this week to drive the Hagen King Piedmont Airlines car next year on the NASCAR Winston Cup circuit. They will continue to run Oldsmobiles. Marlin will replace Terry Labonte, who will move to the Junior Johnson Budweiser team in 1987.
Here's the address again for the Caribbean 500. Send it to Caribbean 500, Post Office Box 240417, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28224.
When we come back, we'll have highlights of the Goody's 500 from here at Martinsville and the mailbox. Stay with us. Steve, it's hard to believe that Bobby Allison has never won here in Winston Cup competition. Now, he won here in a modified race, I think, in the past, but with all the success he's had on short tracks around the country, it's just hard to believe he hasn't won here.
It's a streak that he'd like to break, but it didn't happen this week. Mark Allen has all the highlights of the exciting Goody's 500.
After misfiring last week in Dover, the top 3 guns in the championship shootout copped 3 of the top 4 starting spots. The odd man out was the year's best qualifier, Jeff Bodine, who tallied his 8th pole. But for the second week running, the top trio's aim at the front was off. Number 3 contender Tim Richmond, the first casualty, when a cut tire had him flirting with the wall 56 laps in. He never challenged again, finishing 10th. Points leader and defending race champ Dale Earnhardt did a pirouette through turn 4, but spent more time stopped in the pits while his crew sealed a leaking rear end. He came off the jack stands to finish 12th. The third man in the title chase, Darrell Waltrip, detoured, first by a caved-in oil cooler air duct, then a flat tire, then a frustrating time penalty for having too many men over the wall. Yet his car was so good, he rallied to finish 4th, 1 lap behind the winner. 12 cautions in all, the first on lap 1 among 3 back markers. It looked as though Martinsville would exact its usual toll of crumpled metal and frayed tempers, but not this day. Most of the yellow waved for debris, not accidents, as the Warriors left souvenirs of combat around the half-mile track, yet kept the cars pretty much intact. The hot tempers came mid-race in the battle for 5th. Kyle Petty had it, Ricky Rudd wanted it, but ate a helping of wall, served up by the fellow Ford driver. The class of the field, much of the final 200 laps was Bodine, who used a long stretch of green flag action to pull away from pursuer Rusty Wallace. With fuel supplies critically thin, most teams wondered if they had stretched their luck too far. But the leader's nominal teammate rendered that concern meaningless with 24 laps to go. Bodine's, Wallace's, and third-place Harry Gant's crew knew the first car off pit road held the trump card for the final sprint. Bodine's stopped a fraction slower to Wallace, and the 5 cars' fate was sealed. For the final 21 laps, Wallace hugged the curb, leaving Bodine no place to run but second. For Wallace, his second win of the year, both coming at two of the most demanding short tracks on the circuit. In the title chase, Waltrip picked up 43 points on Earnhardt, Richmond just 2.
Steve, it's always fun to come here at Martinsville, but it's always interesting, too, to see how much race car they have left to take home after 500 laps.
And sometimes there's not a whole lot of car left.
That's the truth. It's time now for the mailbox. Our first letter comes from Mike Womack of Cedartown, Georgia, who writes, do the race cars have power steering? If so, is it any different from that on the passenger car? And if not, why not? So we put that question to Jake Elder, who will be the crew chief for Cale Yarborough in 1987.
Yeah, Mike, all our race cars now has power steering, and power steering on a street car is a little different from a race car, because a street car has like a 10-to-1 steering ratio, and a race car has like a 16 to 20-to-1 steering. So that makes it a little bit slower steering, where the driver can feel it better on the racetrack.
Now, our second question today comes from Jerry Doxey of Scioto, Pennsylvania, and it's for Ricky Rudd. He says, Ricky, after a busy weekend at the races, what do you do during the week? Do you have much free time at home with your wife, Linda, or do you have a lot of promoting to do for Motorcraft, Ford, etc.? And for that answer, we'll go to Ricky Rudd.
Well, Jerry, it really works different ways. I guess 90% of the time we have at least Monday off at home, and sometimes Tuesday, but it sort of works in spells. I know there's occasions when we leave the racetrack and go straight to a personal appearance for Ford Motorcraft appearance. So it really varies. During the winter, we get a lot of time off and get a chance to spend some time at home, but during the year, not as much as we'd like to.
Friends, if your question is used on an upcoming segment of Inside NASCAR, you'll receive this beautiful Timex stopwatch. Timex is the official timekeeper of NASCAR, and this watch is just like the ones the NASCAR teams use. In addition, we'll send you this new 1986 NASCAR yearbook and press guide. 288 colorful pages full of exciting information about NASCAR racing. Write to us today at Inside NASCAR, Post Office Box 240417, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28224. And thanks again to everyone who writes.
Our time's up for today. Hope that you enjoyed the show.
Now, don't forget to send your entries in for the Caribbean 500. Now, on that cruise will be Neil Bonnet, Ken Schrader, Kyle Petty, and recording star T.G. Shepard, so get them in.
Next week, we'll have highlights of the Holly Farms 400 from the North Wilkesboro Speedway.
And we'll also have a story about a facet that you fans don't get to see much of in this sport, and that's how some of the lower finance teams will rent equipment, and some guys will go ahead and rent a car for the entire race.
And we'll have the latest news, the mailbox, and more. So you be with us right here on Inside NASCAR.
The following companies have paid a promotional fee to Inside NASCAR. The Pit Golf Links, one of the nation's most unique championship golf courses. Survive the challenge of the Pit if you can. The newest addition to the Pinehurst tradition, the Pit, Pinehurst, North Carolina. Inside NASCAR's Mobile Hospitality Suite, this luxurious 35-foot 1987 Pace Aero motorhome, provided by Fleetwood Enterprises of Riverside, California. Ground transportation for Inside NASCAR is provided by Choo Choo Custom Vans, Chattanooga, Tennessee, specializing in Chevrolet, vans, pickups, Blazers, and Astros. Inside NASCAR's high-performance camera car, this turbocharged Regal Grand National, provided by the Buick division of General Motors.